Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald is the sequel to Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, which is the kickoff of the prequel series to the original 8 Harry Potter films. And at the end of that film, we found out that Colin Farrell was actually Johnny Depp the whole time, playing Grindelwald. And in the beginning of this film, Grindelwald breaks out of prison and begins to continue to raise up his new army, so Dumbledore tries to enlist in the help of Newt Scamander, once again played by Eddie Redmayne, to try to stop him in any way, shape, or form. There's obviously a lot more story elements going on here, but this is the basic plot synopsis of this film, if you had to make it as basic as possible. In case anyone has forgotten, I'm actually a fan of the 8 film series of Harry Potter. I'm not a huge uber fan of them. I didn't read the books, I didn't look into all of the lore. In fact, it's been a long time since I've actually sat down and watched them from like start to finish, but I'm a casual fan of them. Like, I enjoyed a lot of them. There's some that I like more than others for sure, but overall I have a positive feeling towards that series. And Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them I actually found to be a solid start up to a new prequel series that I thought was going to go in some very interesting places story-wise. So going into it, I wasn't excited about it, like over the moon about the next Fantastic Beasts film, because as I said, I just found the first one to be pretty good. At least I remember. Once again, I haven't sat down and watched that film from start to finish since I saw it in theaters 2 years ago. But I was still interested to see what they could do with the story, how Johnny Depp was going to be as Grindelwald, and how Newt Scamander's character was going to grow, all this stuff. And I walked out of this film very confused and not really sure what I just watched. This is definitely the worst Harry Potter, Wizarding World movie that we've ever gotten, I think. This is bad, man. I really do feel like that David Yates is like burnt out of this Wizarding World crap. Like, he's literally been directing them since Order of the Phoenix. Everything past that has been David Yates directed, and I think you can tell the direction here, I think, is pretty dull and lifeless. For a world that's all about magic, I could barely feel any of that magic. I couldn't feel like I was being transported to this whole new world like the other films in this series. It's so lifeless. Scenes involving magic don't feel as impressive as other sequences that we've seen in this series before. The action sequences are honestly quite dull, except for the opening action scene involving Grindelwald escaping prison, and that was admittedly a solid sequence, but even that has a couple green screen and editing choices that I just did not really agree with overall. I can't really say that there's one action scene that I walked out of loving in this film. There's really not one that I could really get behind. And if the action sequences aren't that good, then all you're really left with is story and characters, and this story... What I said earlier involving the plot synopsis, that was the most basic way to describe this film, it's because there's so much else going on, it barely feels like it fits into this film. In fact, if I'm being honest, this series is supposed to go on for 5 movies. I'm not even sure how they're going to go on past 3 at this point. It seems like they get a lot done, rushed over in this film. And instead of just talking about each one beat for beat and describing how dull and how kind of boring they are, I'm just gonna list how many other subplots are in this film and all these character interactions that you have to look out for. So first off, we have Newt Scamander, who is enlisted by Dumbledore to help him out try to defeat Grindelwald, and because Grindelwald has recently broken out of prison and raising up his army, and while this is going on, Newt Scamander thinks that Tina is also on a case to get to Grindelwald, so he has to look for her, but before he does that, Queenie and Jacob from the last movie show up, and they're having their own little subplot where their relationship is a little bit more on the rocks, and then while that's going on, you also have Newt Scamander being reunited with Letta Lestrange, played by Zoe Kravitz, who is engaged with his brother, Thaddeus Scamander, and there's a whole thing going on there with Thaddeus trying to get Newt to join the Ministry, and making him pick a side for the inevitable war that's gonna come. You also have Credence, played by Ezra Miller, who I thought died in the last movie. He's back, and he's trying to find out who he is, like who his real parents are, and he's enlisted the help with Nagini, the snake, who is a woman, and and you also have this character who's working for Grindelwald who's following Credence, but then you also have another character who might be enlisted with Grindelwald, but maybe not. Tina finds him, and they kind of have a couple interactions, and then there's another character they meet, Nicholas Flamel, who shows up basically for fan service. There's so much story in this film that it's surprising to me that this movie isn't any longer than it actually is. It's 2 hours and 14 minutes, and that's only 1 minute longer than the first Fantastic Beasts film. That first film, of course, having a lot less going on. than the second one. Because of all this stuff that J.K. Rowling decided to put into this script, it just feels so glossed over, rushed, dull and lifeless as the film progresses. Basically, it just feels like, well, it says in the script the characters have to do this, so they're gonna do it. And I'm really starting to think J.K. Rowling might be pulling a George Lucas, and I'm sure a lot of people are gonna be mad at me, but I'm not trying to imply that The Crimes of Grindelwald is as hilariously bad as like The Phantom Menace or Attack of the Clones or anything. I'm just saying that she has written the script for the first Fantastic Beasts movie, and now she's written this one, and she's slated to write the other three as well, while also keeping David Yates as director for the other three. And I really do think it's a case of J.K. Rowling is like A-list status of writer, so the studio better not mess with her vision at all. Like, you'd be crazy to. So because of that, I don't think any of the problems are studio interference. I think it's literally just on her, and she has a really clear vision of where she wants this series to go, but she's just kind of more interested in the later half, so she's kind of rushing through the earlier entries in this series. That's what it feels like, basically. The strengths of the original Harry Potter films is that they all build on each other. Each director took their time with the story that they had. With each film, the stories felt complete enough so that they could keep building on each other, so when you get to the 8th one, it's like this just magnum opus of like, yes, I've been invested with this series for so long, and now we finally made it to the end and everything's paying off. But right now, in the Fantastic Beasts series, you have a solid starter, but then you have this dull, lifeless, basically exposition film. This film has so much exposition in it that basically just trying to get you to move on to the third film, which I will admit has me interested, basically, because they have a twist near the end of this film that's like, okay, so I guess we can see where that goes. But even then it's like, but why do I care? Because this film didn't give me a reason to care about them. I cared about the characters in the first movie, but as soon as this one started, there was something about it that I was just like, huh, you know, I feel like I cared more. Right now, I don't care about Newt Scamander anymore. I don't care about Tina or Jacob or any of them right now, which was surprising to me. And I don't think anyone's giving a bad performance per se. I'm sure a lot of people are still 50-50 on Eddie Redmayne's performance. I still like him. I think he brings a lot to that character, but there's just so much going on that it feels like certain relationships that he has with people like Tina Goldstein and Letta Lestrange should be delved into a bit more. But they're really not. And speaking of Letta Lestrange, they showed her picture in the first Fantastic Beasts movie, implying that she has more to do, like she impacts Newt's life in some way. And in this film, you get the very basic of what Letta means to him. But I guarantee by the time this film ends, you will not care about her character at all. They reveal something about her, and I didn't feel a thing, other than the fact that once you hear it, it's like, well, that's kind of messed up. But then you think, well, you barely spent that much time with her in this film, and this feels like a twist that you should save for a character that audiences have grown to really like. And it feels like Newt and her should be interacting more, and it feels like Newt should have a bigger reaction to what you just said too, or something like that. It might just be the most dull love triangle ever. You have Letta, and then Newt, and then Tina. There's this sense of that chemistry that Newt and Tina had in that first film, and there's one scene in this one that I was like, alright, that's genuinely just kind of good character interaction for them. But other than that, it feels like, well, I'm looking for Tina. Alright, I found her. Well, we gotta do some exposition plot stuff now, and then that's kind of it. In order for us to care about this series, you have to make sure the characters all work, and you have to make sure that the audience is really getting engaged with these people. Because I can guarantee there is not one single character in the Fantastic Beasts series right now that rivals anyone from the Harry Potter series. And it doesn't matter what kind of fan service you can throw in to get people to care, like you still have to develop that enough so that it fits with this narrative. Like Nicholas Flamel, the guy who made the Sorcerer's Stone, I think, I'm pretty sure that's what his character is, but you wouldn't be able to tell in this film because he basically shows up for a quick little, like, I'm old gag, basically, and then he does something near the end that feels like any other character could have done it, so what's the point of this fan service, JK? And I guess I should mention the other two characters that are the more famous out of this series. First off, Albus Dumbledore, played by Jude Law. Very good. Jude Law, he's quite charming. and he's got so much charisma compared to literally everyone else that it's so warming to just see him kind of have fun with this character. If anything, I wish this movie focused more on him and Newt going on an adventure instead of just him meeting Newt at first and then I have like 2 other scenes at Hogwarts now. I wish they had just focused on Jude Law more, you know, instead of stretching it out over the course of 5 films. So, well, they'll team up more in the next one. In the next one, you gotta wait for it though, you gotta sit through this one first. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, Johnny Depp as Grindelwald. Now, a lot of people are a little not so warm to Johnny Depp anymore, and I can completely understand that because his movies just have not been the greatest and his performances just kind of feel like old, tired stuff. I'm still a fan of his as far as his approach to acting certain characters and other films that he's been involved with, and I always pray that he'll have a big comeback role that'll finally ignite that spark for him again, where he's like, I don't have to just be goofy cartoon characters that are in live action. I can, like, be a great actor. I can actually do better stuff than this, than Alice Through the Looking Glass. And I was really hoping that Grindelwald was gonna be that spark for him to finally realize I don't have to be just an over-exaggerated cartoon character. I can, deliver a completely menacing, dark performance. And I was really hoping for that. And he is essentially a weak Marvel villain. And that's it. Basically, he has the opening scene where he breaks out of prison and, solid sequence. It sets up that he's a very menacing dude. But then throughout the rest of the film, he walks around and he monologues to people about his plans, and he doesn't really do anything else that menacing except he lets one of his goons do something quite horrible to a baby. And that's kind of it. That's like the only crime of Grindelwald that they show in this film. And then you have the big finale action sequence near the end that barely feels like anything. He delivers this huge speech that's like, alright, Johnny Depp's getting a little more into it, you can see. But number one, I finally realized, oh wait, this guy has been doing nothing but giving speeches to other people, and this is just him giving a huge speech to a bunch of other people, so why should I care? What's so different about this speech? And then once they get into the action, it's just like, well, it's an unsatisfying conclusion, it doesn't feel that epic, yet you're trying to make it seem that epic, and I don't feel anything for this villain right now, other than I just have a lot of hope for this actor in the future. That's it? That's what you're gonna do with Grindelwald, the guy who you're comparing to Voldemort? The Voldemort before Voldemort? Basically, this is it? That's so lame. He's such a lame character in this film. Now, of course, there's the sequels that can flesh him out, of course. There's always that option. But I'm saying for this film, I don't care for him. And even if I watch Fantastic Beasts 3, I doubt I'll watch Crimes of Grindelwald again and be like, I really like the character now. Probably not. I'll just look at him and go like, yeah, this is the weaker version of him. But they really did improve upon him in the third one, assuming that they actually do improve on anything in the third one. I mentioned Credence earlier and how he's still alive. They explain it-ish, basically by Newt Scamander being confused, like, wait, I thought he was dead. Why are you talking about him as if he's still here? And then someone goes, oh, because he is still here. He survived. And then they move on like, he was a huge cloud! And he, disappeared because he got zapped a bunch. But you're saying that he's still alive? Are you sure? What is going on? You didn't even bother explaining that? Okay, whatever. It's a weak version of Credence that you saw in the first one. I like Credence more in that first movie. It was much more dark and scary for him. And in this one, it's just like, I don't care. I'm confused as to why you're here. Which is probably why I don't care as much. But I really want to talk about these characters real quick. Jacob and Queenie, their relationship seemed pretty strong in that first film. And the first film ends with J.K. Rowling writing in that the entire city got mind wiped, and so did Jacob because he's a muggle or a nomad. But at the end, they left it open for Queenie to ignite his memory again for whatever reason. Whatever, so they're back, but their relationship is on the rocks because they know they shouldn't be romantically involved. And this storyline basically goes into some places that would have been really interesting and really fascinating if, like everyone else, they just focused on that more. If they fleshed out that story more. Instead, I'm watching this film, and when a certain character makes a certain decision later, I was just like, why? Why? What is the motivation? You've shown me the basic of why you'd want to do this, but I don't feel it at all. It feels so forced. And it makes me look at this character who I liked in the first one and just not like them as much at all in this film. And also, Jacob, I thought he was a really funny presence in the first one. I didn't really laugh at any joke they had in this film. The humor doesn't even work. This movie is directed and written in such a dull, boring way that the humor doesn't even save it. None of the characters that I liked from before feel the same. They all feel just like the more dull version of what they were. The action sequences aren't even that good, and the Fantastic Beasts, sure, the CG for them separately, they look really great. As soon as they started to blend in with the live action, that didn't even look good. And now I'm confused because I remember the first one looking good visually. Was I mistaken at all? Was that just me? What happened between films? Or was it always like, do I actually need to rewatch Fantastic Beasts now? Oh God. I guess that's the worst part about this film, because the score by James Newton Howard, it's still very good. It's got that same whimsy, but you don't feel that whimsy throughout the rest of the film. The action sequences don't feel as good. The actual use of magic doesn't feel as strong. The characters don't feel as strong or relatable at all. And out of the entire cast who's trying, Albus Dumbledore is the only character that I found any form of life in. The other characters just feel so dull, and I couldn't get invested with them at all. By the time it does get to its sequel bait cliffhanger ending, I just couldn't bring myself to care. Like, I'm interested, sort of, but only because I'm really hoping that J.K. Rowling learns from this mistake here, and David Yates, either they get him inspired again or they just replace him in general, because I really do think he's burnt out. I don't think he should be making these movies anymore. I'm gonna give Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald a C-. This might be lower than you expected out of a Fantastic Beasts film, a sequel to a film that I actually found solid, but there's just so many mistakes here, and I really can't blame the studio because I think it's all on J.K. Rowling. She's reached such a A-list writer status that I don't think the studio would even bother interfering with her vision. I think she'd actually threaten them if they try to get in the way of her mindset. And I really do think that that's now hurting the film, because with the other 8 Harry Potter films, they were taking J.K. Rowling's books and adapting them and making artistic directing changes and writing changes, and now J.K. Rowling just basically has control. It's, like I said, George Lucas having control over the prequels, as opposed to when he just did the first Star Wars and then someone else did Empire, and then someone else did Return of the Jedi. I hope they all learn from this, because there's still some things that I liked. The score, Jude Law, creature design, and the opening action sequence is the best one, even if it has some mistakes too. And no one is giving a bad performance, just they're not fully getting me invested with their characters, and I could really care less about them. I could care less about this series right now, which is a bummer, because I was really interested to see where it could go with that first film. But if you've seen Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald, leave in the comments below what you thought of it, and as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.